In 1863, the Metropolitan Railway opened, the world's first underground railway. And of all the London Underground network, I've always found it to be fascinating with tunnels that are only just below the surface, full-size trains and sizable complex stations. The Just Trains Train Sim Classic creation covers the entire Met line, and although it's from a few years ago now, it was done to a really good high quality. From the terminus platforms at Aldgate in the heart of the city, the classic interchange station at Baker Street, and gradually heading north to Uxbridge, Watford, Chesham and Amersham. Much of the modern day real route from Harrow-on-the-Hill southwards is automatic train operated, so the driver only really has to open and close the doors. But in the period when the train sim route was set, it's fully signalled throughout, and particularly the approach to Baker Street is challenging in its own right with the approach signals. Last time I was in London, I was lucky enough to see the Rail Adhesion train at Wembley Park, and of course this was very much a familiar sight on the District line in days gone by. In this video, we're operating train number 403, which is 17 trips in all. It's an all-day shift that's available on Alan Thomson Simulation. And we're going to be doing the last two duties on the shift, which is a run from Watford to Baker Street, and then Baker Street to Wembley, and then finishing up at Neasden Depot. So first job, as always, is to set our train up. So we need to put our key into on and move the master control into tripcock. And then we need to sort out a little bit of this control over here. Now duty number and train number I get mixed up on, so I'm going to call the duty number and the train number the same thing. It's probably train number that's important for the outside display. Handheld radio number doesn't really matter. So we'll confirm that, and then we need destination 231 for all stations to Baker Street. And it does say we're set up at Watford. We've got the announcements plugged in as well.
This is Watford. This is an all-stations Metropolitan line train to Baker Street. The next station is Croxley.
We need to actually put the dead man's handle into that position, and that way it's not going to keep going off all the time. That's the crucial thing. Just make sure, yep, we are correctly displayed. Baker Street, all stations. That's what we should say. We've got the pilot light on, which kind of indicates that the doors are closed. Excuse me. So you can see there the 15 marker with the perimeter with the black, so that tells us that the second we go past that we can actually go up to 15. It will actually tell us off in train sim classic terms because it's waiting for us to pass the train, but of course this is London Underground, so that in itself is all fine. So we're going to ignore the speeding bits because we aren't speeding in proper terms. Of course, if it was one of those lines where it was Network Rail and the Underground shared the same tracks, then we would have to wait until the back of the train goes through, but we would know that because there'd be red all around the circle rather than black. So we'll soon have 50 miles an hour as well. We'll be able to get the speed up, as you can see. And then we are on our way bound for Croxley, our first stop. So very much discovering or rediscovering an old classic here. It's a fantastic route, and I don't believe it's on sale currently on the Just Trains website. I've no idea why. I haven't heard the news, and certainly the enhancement pack with the announcements doesn't seem to be available either. But hopefully it will come back. And this is a scenario pack from Basic Learner, and he's essentially got an all-day 4:03 timetable on there, right from sort of just before 6 o'clock in the morning right through to the evening, and we're doing the last two parts, which will take us through to Baker Street and then Neasden Depot. So I love that idea because it's a bit almost Train Sim World with a 24-hour timetable.
The next station is Croxley.
Takes a bit of practice when you've not driven it for ages either, because very, very fast acceleration and really sharp braking. But
This is Croxley. This is an all-station Metropolitan line train to Baker Street. The next station is Moor Park.
I've got a feeling that shakiness of the cab is some sort of Train Sim Classic glitch, but I've forgotten all the ins and outs of why that's happening, but hopefully it's not too distracting for you. So the first thing to think about here is we've got some approach control issues between Watford and Moor Park. So when we see the yellow signal, basically just after that we need to be going no faster than 29.9 miles an hour. And that's important because otherwise the next red will not clear. And that's kind of a feature that we'll see particularly as we get in closer to Baker Street as well. And I've seen plenty of good YouTube videos where that's been observed, but I've also seen quite a few where there's not been that realization. So there's the yellow repeater. And we have got the green, so we're okay. So we're about to go around the curve to take us into Moor Park, but you also see a curve off to the right, and that's the famous, or you might say the infamous, North Curve, because that takes you off to Rickmansworth and Amersham, and there are very, very few services that actually use it. Because in the daytime, if you're getting a train and you want to go from Amersham or Rickmansworth to Watford, you just simply have to change at Moor Park. But first thing in the morning, there's a couple of trains, I think I'm right in saying still, that will take you around the North Curve, and again it's the same at night. I've been on it once because I went on the 1938 Heritage train last year, and that went from Amersham to Watford, and we did actually go on the famous North Curve. But the great thing about this pack from Basic Learner is it is an all-day timetable, and you can essentially do all the stuff right the way throughout the day, and I think that's magnificent, really. And it gives you every element of the branch to it. So not a new pack, but it's on Alan Thomson Simulation. But if you want a complete story on the Met Line, then it's something I'd highly recommend. You could start off, if you like, right at the start of the day from the sidings at Uxbridge and take a train into service from Uxbridge. And of course, there's plenty that go through the core element beyond Baker Street through to Aldgate as well. Of course, there's a Chiltern Railways service. We'll see one or two of those, I suspect, on the journey. That'll be on its way bound for Marylebone. Notice Mickery's there.
The next station is Moor Park. Change for Metropolitan Line services to Amersham and Chesham.
The idea is you're trying to stop literally about halfway on that S8 stop sign, and we'll see how many of these I get right during the journey. Probably not many.
Moor Park. This is an all-station Metropolitan Line train to Baker Street. The next station is Northwood.
I mean, you know immediately if you've got it right, because you'll see both of those monitors will, or at least one of them will actually show the display. So we are all stations, so Northwood is our next stop. We are very much at the country end of the route as well, and you kind of think when you get into the heart of the city it's a different story, but this end you could be very much deep in the countryside. It's a world away from central London as well. And 50 mile an hour, even 60 mile an hour running later on in the journey, which is pretty much unheard of in London Underground terms. I mean, I think we've all said it, but I think everybody would love to see the Met Line on Train Sim World, but I think Just Trains, and they've kind of built all the stuff, so they probably have a head start on that, but I think they said it was such a nightmare building it for Train Sim Classic. I don't think they've got any desires on building this for Train Sim World, which is fair enough, I guess. And it's still a great run on Train Sim Classic. I think we've got plenty of other stock as well, just not the Jubilee line trains, but we should see just about everything else, hopefully, en route to Baker Street. Pretty busy, the timetable.
The next station is Northwood.
Quite a test actually as well when you're a little bit tired after a long day at work as well, trying to drive this.
This is Northwood. Line train to Baker Street. The next station is Northwood Hills.
I think the other train is going to go before us. But I do love all the detail on each individual station. There was a heck of a lot of detail that was put in, and I think it's great the fact that we haven't just got kind of a section of the Met Line. We've got the whole lot. Every part of it is represented, and I'm hoping over the next few weeks, months, I suppose it depends really on what else comes out, but I'd love to do kind of a little series of doing all the branches, and it's certainly possible with this timetable pack. And if time allows as well, spring or summer, I'm hoping to kind of get out and do a little bit of a longer video on the real Met Line as well. But although it's been out for a good few years, I think it still stands the test of time. And I love the fact they released initially and it was pretty good then, but then they brought in that enhancement pack with better scenery, better track textures, and best of all, the announcements. And I think that they literally sat with the train in the depot and they allowed them to record all the announcements, went through the whole sequence so that they had everything prepared. And of course, apart from pressing the button to activate the plug-in, you don't have to do anything else either. It kind of works it out as the real train would in real life. You don't have to keep pressing buttons to get the announcements working, which again is brilliant.
The next station is Northwood Hills.
We are sort of late evening, of course. It's 8 o'clock in the evening in terms of this service, because the follow-up service will be Baker Street to Neasden Depot. Well, Baker Street to Wembley and then Neasden Depot.
This is Northwood Hills. This is an all-stations Metropolitan Line train to Baker Street. The next station is Pinner.
And I think when you look towards the station building, straight away you can see just the work and the effort that's gone into that. That's no straightforward custom build. Does take off like a rocket, this thing, I have to say. It doesn't take it long to get up to 50 miles an hour. Not when you bear in mind the length of the train anyway. Might not be up to Porsche or Ferrari standards, I guess. And the good thing is, really, you don't have to think about massively the distance to where the station is. You can kind of see the station, and that tells you need to start putting on some brakes. It's not quite like where you've got to watch the hood for the distance. I think Pinner is the Pinner as in Metroland, and the famous poet laureate, I think, Sir John Betjeman, long since not with us, but he was a great train fanatic, and I think that's the Pinner that he was referring to. And all the signals are accurately modelled as well. Of course, this is an era before automatic train operation, ATO, came in, that was set. We'll talk about that a little bit more once we get past Harrow on the Hill. Again, people will know the answer to this, but is that Mossbury's? So is it Morrison's or is it Sainsbury's? But I'm sure there is a supermarket there in real life. I love to look at sometimes Google Earth for stuff like that, just to satisfy the curiosity. Now, the one thing I don't know is if you're a real tube driver, obviously it wouldn't be one driver that would do this entire shift from 6 o'clock in the morning until 10 o'clock at night. So I'd be interested to know exactly how many services, exactly how long each shift would actually last for. Hope as well the sounds are coming through nice and clearly, because I've got that sound mod installed, and I think it might be on Trainsim Community as well, but this is come from Alan Thomson Simulation. But there's a couple of sound mods available for the S8. I think Sam has done one as well. This is the original one. I think this was done by I think it might have originally been available on the Rail Sim Germany, if I remember rightly. Just overdoing it, these stops at the moment. We'll get it right eventually.
This is North Harrow. This is an all-station Metropolitan Line train to Baker Street. The next station is Harrow on the Hill.
A lot of effort went in terms of bridges and stuff as well. Very, very, very detailed. Just waiting for the marker to tell us to close the doors. So Harrow on the Hill next. There's a bit of an interchange station, and you can certainly change for a Chiltern Railway service into Marylebone at this point. And of course, for that matter, Chiltern Railways go off northbound towards places like Oxford. There is one there. and also onto Birmingham Moor Street as well. And of course the secret with these speed restrictions, I mean, we've got to drop down to 40, but that'll only take us a few seconds, so try not brake too early, as it were, for those. Probably even then I've been actually, I don't know if that is that an Uxbridge bound train going down there. But yeah, there's kind of a real hub about Harrow on the Hill. It's a busy old station, a busy old setting.
The next station is Harrow on the Hill. Change for Metropolitan line services to Uxbridge and National Rail services.
I do like the track joint sounds and the flange. It's quite nicely done, this sound mod. I'd say there's two of them available, and the other one's pretty good as well. That's slightly noisier with the track joints, but for me this one has got the balance just about right.
This is Harrow on the Hill. This is an all-station Metropolitan line train to Baker Street. The next station is Northwick Park.
Right, so we've got an Aldgate service ahead of us by the looks of it. I presume, mind you, we've got the green signal, they've got the red signal, so I think we're going to be let out before that one is. Ghost train there, but you can see just how very nicely everything is done. Yeah, funny thing is, you probably imagine as in all stations that that train might actually go off before us, but clearly not. And you can see with the feather we are going to swing over the points in a second. I mean, some of the amateur services in particular certainly don't stop, and the Cheshire ones as well are kind of like semi-fast. So whereas pretty much universally on the tube network you're all stations, on the Met line not always the case. Now we are now, I believe I'm right in saying, in ATO operation. I don't know exactly where it kicks in, and people might just know a bit better than me, I suspect.
The next station is Northwick Park.
Mind the gap between the train and the platform.
There is an ATO button on this unit that you can click, but it doesn't do anything at all. But essentially that just means that in real life the only thing that the driver would pretty much have to do is open and close the doors, which, to be honest, is a bit boring from a train simulation point of view, so I'm glad we haven't quite got it like that.
Mind the gap between the train and the platform.
This is Northwick Park.
Yeah, you see, we're just short of the board there.
Metropolitan line train to
Nice to see the train's pretty busy and packed with passengers as well. Yeah, the section that will be really interesting is the one between Finchley Road and Baker Street. I'm slightly out of practice, but I've got my trusted Metropolitan signalling guide that I've downloaded. I think it's part of the pack and tucked away in manuals, but for me it's invaluable because it's kind of ages since I've done it, so it's just a nice little guide to remind me what the sequence of signals are. So coming into Preston Road now.
The next station is Preston Road.
I mean, I think in reality you wouldn't hear the announcements from the cab, and there is an option with the plug-in to mute them, which is make it more accurate, but personally speaking I like to hear them, but the choice, as they say, is yours if you own the pack.
This is Preston Road.
Yeah, I'm still slightly short.
This is an
Oh no,
all-station
no,
Metropolitan
monitors have come
line
up.
train to
No, we're right
Baker
this
Street.
time.
The next station is Wembley Park.
Yeah, good to see plenty of AI traffic and other trains in evidence. Yeah, so those monitors stay active for a while until the whole of the train's actually left the station. And of course in reality it would be a live moving image, but at least we've got you get the idea of it anyway, which is good. I've stopped at Wembley Park quite a few times because it's kind of an ideal distance in terms of getting to London, and it's quite nice actually into central London. It's quite nice because you've got the choice of either going on the Met line or going over to Wembley Central and coming down onto the Bakerloo line, or even the Overground, whichever takes your fancy. And sort of Wembley Stadium itself is slap bang in the middle of the two.
The next station is Wembley Park. Change for the Jubilee line. Exit for Wembley Stadium and Wembley Arena.
Mind the gap between the train and the platform.
This is like the old bridge that we're coming under, and then you've got the newer concourse that we're about to go under now. But it's undergone again very, very, very extensive rebuilding over the years.
Mind the gap between the train and the platform.
This is Wembley Park. This is an all-station Metropolitan line train to Baker Street. The next station is Finchley Road.
And of course this is the steps going up to the concourse there, and then you can go right underneath it and walk up Wembley. I mean, the slightly more basic than it is around here than in real life, but at least you get the feeling, and you've got the stadium there with the backdrop in the background. So now we've got quite an interesting little section because we are fast to Finchley Road, and this is where I think the one thing that is missing from this pack is the Jubilee line services. And I think basically the creator said that it just would tip the game over the edge if you put those in as well. But there are stations that we go past that the Jubilee line services are formed. So we've got 50 at the moment, then we drop down to 40, and then we go up to 60, which that really is unheard of in underground terms. I mean, it's strange to use the word underground when the vast majority of this journey is actually overground. This is Neasden Depot, which we'll see a bit more of later on. Again, nicely done, all the custom building, and I think it's very true to say as well that they put a lot of work in terms of putting all the depot and the yard in. Now, as far as I know, this platform here is very, very underused in terms of Metline terms. I think it's probably more likely to be picking up and dropping off staff rather than actually as a calling point for services. When we do get to the tunnel section, of course, this is essentially what they call subsurface, so it certainly isn't going deep down, and a lot of the tunnel sections is only just about below ground, and in some cases peaks out at various points. But we're only going as far as Baker Street. That's, I get the driving right anyway. I think it's fairly safe to say that if you're watching this, then it means that I have been successful in getting us properly into Baker Street. I know a lot of you would love to see more London Underground stuff on Trains and World as well. I mean, the Bakerloo line is pretty good. But of course, a lot of the network is actually ATO operated, so you could just about get away with it with the Piccadilly line, with providing you use the older stock anyway. The district line, I guess, as well. I don't know if any of that's ATO. I don't know much about that side of things, but vast majority of it is ATO. I mean, some of it even goes back to, I think the Victoria line was the late 60s, so anybody that thinks that it's a modern thing, and of course I think most people are probably oblivious to it for the travelling public, because of course they don't drive without a driver on board, and he can completely override the automated feature as well if he wants to. But I think in terms of the automation does mean that you can get a much higher frequency of trains. Should have made a note of the station. I know Willesden Green and Dolly's Hill, which is one of my favourite names for some reason on the underground, are two of them. It's got really quite cloudy now overhead. So we're not too far away from Finchley Road now. You'll see the massive Sainsbury's, I think it is, on the left. That's sort of that curvy building as we're coming into the platforms.
The next station is Finchley Road. Change for the Jubilee line.
Mind the gap between the train and the platform. Mind the gap between the train and the platform.
This is Finchley Road. This is an all-station Metropolitan line train to Baker Street. The next station is Baker Street.
Now, of course, Tom, one of the route builders, when he first showed this off, I thought, this is pure madness, these approach control signals. It can't be like this in real life. Now, of course, nowadays it's not because of ATO, but the fact of the matter is, back in the day, it was very much a thing, and drivers just had to be aware of what speed they were doing so that the signals would actually clear. The first thing to look out for is, we'll go past the site of Marlborough Road, an old station, which is at the end of the first single bore tunnel, and we'll see a yellow, and you need to be going no more than 19.9 miles per hour to reach at that yellow repeater, and that means then that the next one will clear to green. I presume that's Marlborough Road station, is it, that we just passed, or the site of. So it's quite handy to use the zoom with these things, because then you can see a bit more clearly. There you can see it there. So we need to get that speed down to 19.9 in preparation. They're quite fiendish as well, some of these things, because you are going downhill as well, so it's all going to catch you out unless you watch it carefully. Yeah, so we're all right now. That's the signal on the right there that is now cleared. So the next one we're looking out for is Lords at the end of the second single bore tunnel. So that's a bit faster this time, 39.9 miles an hour. But we are 30 at the moment. Actually, let's come out of this zoomed up. 39.9 almost seems pointless. I don't see why they even had to put in a restriction at this point. I'm probably not even going to bother to go to 45. It's completely and utterly pointless. We'll stick at this. There you go. You got the yellow and red. You'll notice there. So that means that the next signal will nicely clear for green for us, which is there. But then there's another one coming up here as well. So right at the end, we have to be going down to 14.9 to clear the one just before the tunnel. So I've probably been a bit overcautious with these signals in actual fact, but I prefer to do that than actually go flying through. Yeah, see it's already cleared to green. Now the next one is even more awkward because this one is 4.9 miles an hour, and the problem is it comes on you right around the corner, so all I can say is don't speed up too much. It's on a right hand bend. I'm not totally convinced that it's this difficult to observe in real life. Yeah, so you see the red there, and this is 4.9. And they're going down. So it really is fiendish, this one. Now you think, there you go, it's changed, so we're okay there. So that's clear to green. And we are getting into the bay platform as well. You just have to be a tad careful.
The next station is Baker Street. Change for the Bakerloo, Circle, Hammersmith City and Jubilee line. Exit for Madame Tussauds.
Find the gap between the train and the platform.
I wasn't quite expecting this, to be honest. I was thinking we were going to go into the bay on the right hand side. That makes things slightly easier, I would hope. To be totally honest with you, I'm not totally sure if that signal is supposed to be us on the left or the right, so I hope we're okay. Yeah, we're all right. Don't think I've ever driven a train into this platform on the game before, to be honest, so this is a new experience for me. Now the station here, I think, is incredible. Really, really detailed, and just an amazing job just to build this in the detail that they have.
Find the gap between the train and the platform.
This is Baker Street.
try a little bit of train sim magic. You can join me in just a second, and then we will take the run from Baker Street back to Wembley. So a very busy scene at Baker Street. I think it's an absolutely amazing station actually, and the detail that Just Trains have put in is nothing short of outstanding. So as we are in a different cab at the other end, then we do need to get set up once again. So we'll remember to go into that dead man's handle situation again. So that's locked in. So we are again, it's 4:03, a bit close up there. This is basically shifts 16 and 17 because we're going to take it through to Wembley Park in service, and then we are going to take it into the carriage sidings at Neasden Depot. So it's just 54 this time, I believe, for Wembley Park. Hopefully, when we get the announcements on, we should be about right.
Mind the gap between the train and the platform.
This is Baker Street. This is an all-station Metropolitan line train to Wembley Park. The next station is Finchley Road.
And it says to go at 20, 36 and 30 seconds, so we are just about on time. So I have to say, absolutely thoroughly thrilled with this pack. I think it's been a really, really good job. And I love the idea of having the entire services for this train for the whole day, which I think is absolutely outstanding. And you can basically just do any service from and to any location. So I'm hoping this should be a reasonably straightforward run into Wembley Park and then Neasden Depot. The only thing to keep an eye out really is those pesky signals a little bit, just in case we do have a train behind us or in front of us. But all being well, it should be fairly straightforward. We don't have any approach control signals to worry about anyway, so that should make things a bit easier. So you can see there's kind of bits here where you do emerge out into the open, and remember this is a summer's evening, so I mean we are approaching 20 to 9 at night, but it would be still very light. But I love the detail. I mean, I was just having a quick look around Baker Street, and just in the couple of minutes whilst I was just checking things up, there's stuff coming in and out. It really, really is busy. Should be okay for 40 briefly, and then we drop down to 30. I've kind of no idea how in real life. I mean, it must be so much easier now you've got ATO, because the train decides all this sort of stuff for you, but the idea of constantly going up and down with these speed limits, it must have taken some getting the hang of. Of course, you've got no idea when you're kind of in the train in real life. You just hear it sort of speeding along, going up and down in terms of the speed limits. You've just got no concept. So again, as you can see, we're dropping down to 25. There are technically little markers. I mean, the kind of the big speed limits are all right to see, but I mean those tiny ones, I think they're kind of more for effect, because you wouldn't be able to visually view what the speed limits were, but you would know automatically that that was the speed limit that was in place. But it does seem really, really up and down, this particular section heading northbound. As you can see, we've kind of got 25s, 30s and 40s all over the place. We do seem to be getting green signals throughout, which is a good sign. So again, you've kind of got a 30 and then a 25, which is typical.
Change for the Jubilee line.
Mind the gap between the train and the platform.
Again, a really, really busy station is Finchley Road. Of course, you can go to Uxbridge via the Piccadilly line.
Mind the gap between the train and the platform.
This is Finchley Road. This is an all-station Metropolitan line train to Wembley Park. The next station is Wembley Park.
I don't think there are many Met Line services that actually terminate at Wembley Park, but remembering this is the end of the shift. Actually, that's the closed doors. Of course, we need to be here. So we should be thinking jubilantly at this stage, because we'll be thinking it's the end of a busy day, the end of another shift. So as you can see, we've got 50 there, and as I said earlier, we'll go straight up to 50. And Train Sim Classic thinks we're speeding, but not in terms of London Underground rules. We're doing absolutely fine. I think TSW, they kind of sorted out that little glitch on the Bakerloo line, so it works that out, but it's not something that Train Sim Classic they've ever been able to quite sort out. Again, a kind of a pinky orangey glow, I think you might describe it as, at this point in a summer's evening. I just love the fact that, you know, there's so many custom buildings in this, and there's obviously some that are used and reused from other routes. There's a pretty comprehensive Just Trains library for Train Sim Classic, but there's loads and loads of absolutely new stuff as well. And, you know, even the fact that you go past flats and they're not just generic flats, which again, it would have been really easy to have copped out on that. And all the bridges, there's loads and loads of custom bridges as well. I just hope it goes back on sale again, and if anybody knows an explanation as to why officially it's not being taken off sale, I think somebody has suggested to me that it was for licensing reason, but it just seems a bit strange, because I know that TfL were certainly happy to help Just Train building this route, and I guess, like a lot of things, it's a question of how long the license lasts for and all that sort of stuff. The only thing that would be quite nice is when we get to Wembley Park, if suddenly when we depart the train was completely empty, but that's, I mean, it's difficult enough getting Train Sim World to do that, where in theory it is perfectly possible, but with characters that don't move on board the trains and in Train Sim Classic, then I'm afraid we'll just have to use our imagination for that bit. So I hope you've enjoyed the video, and if you haven't done so before, I'd be tremendously appreciated if you consider liking and subscribing to the channel. And as ever, your support is hugely appreciated. So Train Sim World will always be the #1 game for me, well, certainly at the moment, unless something else comes along, but that's the superior game in terms of everything that's involved. Just occurred to me, actually, we're going to be heading back southbound, aren't we, when we get to Wembley Park. Not thought of that, so we'll have to change cabs again, but there's still plenty going with Train Sim Classic, and I think for some time yet as well, when you think that there are massive gaps in terms of the network of, you know, sort of the UK, and certainly with underground stuff as well. So it'll be a long time before we get up to Train Sim Classic standards in terms of UK coverage. Wembley Park coming into view.
The next station is Wembley Park. Change for the Jubilee line. Exit for Wembley Stadium and Wembley Arena.
Mind the gap between the train and the platform.
We've had nice green signals all the way, which has made life a bit easier.
Mind the gap between the train and the platform.
This is Wembley Park, where this train terminates. Please take your belongings with you when you leave the train. All change.
Yeah, I love the accurate vibe on that actually. Yeah, so we've got a few people waiting. They obviously want a trip back to the depot, don't they? But that's sort of the angle I was looking for. So we've changed ends. I've edited out that section a little bit because it's very, very interesting, but it was 7 or 8 minutes long. But it's fascinating the amount of stuff that was coming in. So we need to set up the cab at the other end, so put that into on. Now, we have been told we need to go into restrictive mode, so that's RM, and it's a bit dark to see this, but it is the one after tripcock, so I think that'll restrict us down to 10 miles an hour. So we need obviously to put the dead man's handle into that position, and I'm not going to bother, I don't think, with the controls over here because we don't have a destination to note, I don't think, so we should be alright, I think, with that. And then the short trip relatively to Neasden Depot. Just thought, actually, did I close the doors? That's better. I was worried then for a second. The doors were basically shut, but of course, unless you actually press the R key or press that gaslight button on the controls on the screen, then you are effectively in a bit of a tricky situation because you haven't interlocked the doors properly. Again, there shouldn't really be passengers on board. I mean, there probably is a way of making this stage 17, which is the last part of the shift. I don't know whether there is a model of the stock without passengers on board. That would make it slightly more accurate, but we're not going to worry overly too much about that. And hopefully, all being well, I'd like to do more of these runs. I mean, I'm slightly doing this at the back end, really, aren't I? Because I'm doing the last part of the shift. But it'd be good to cover all the branches and have a look at the branch from Uxbridge. We've already done Watford, but Amersham, Chesham, and cover kind of the full picture. And also as well go on to Aldgate, because the service that we did was just to Baker Street, and it's quite fascinating, the sections as well, onwards from Baker Street through to Aldgate, going through places like Farringdon. And of course, in theory, you would encounter the Thameslink trains. I don't think there's any Thameslink trains been put into this particular pack. I could be wrong because I haven't tried it yet. But I don't recall there being any Thameslink requirements in the, or Class 700 requirements in the, when I read the read through what's required. Again, covering a little section of the line that I don't think I've done before, because I don't think I've taken a service into Neasden Depot like this. I've taken one out of Neasden Depot before. There's one or two scenarios that come with the Packers standard way you can do that, but this is the first time for me of actually taking it back into Neasden Depot. It's late summer's evening, so it's still daylight, but you can see it's the early stages of going towards darkness. We should be in restricted mode again, shouldn't we? But right, I've had to change the points there. I've actually edited a bit out of the video because, in all honesty, I ended up behind the train behind, and we just wouldn't have ended up at the end point. So we would have been fouling the whole yard as well. So I've worked out how to change the points after a few minutes of messing around. So I thought I'd clear that bit out of the video. So I don't think we've got a time scale in terms of arriving at the end point, so we still might be okay. We're probably a few minutes late in reality because of that. There we go. So that is literally end of shift. So that's Neasden Depot in the background. So again, we've got a whole array of trains parked up. You can see Wembley Stadium over there, and that was thoroughly enjoyable. So if you do own the pack already, it's well worth downloading this all-day shift from 403. Alan Thomson Simulation. It's on Basic Learner all-day shift, train 403, and there's 17 trips in all, so it just gives you the chance of doing as many end-to-end trips as you want in reality. So very much enjoyed that, and I hope to do a few more of these services over time, and I'd like to as well just get out and record a real all-day ride on the Met Line as well, cover all the various endpoints. So thank you very much for watching, and until next time, from Powerflower Trains and Planes, it is, for now, goodbye.